hungry Trilobyte podcast would like to start by acknowledging Soonercon. Join us for Oklahoma's premier pop culture convention. Soonercon returns June 20th through 22nd, 2025. This will be the 33rd year for Soonercon, and this year will bring even more cosplay, celebrity guests, kids' workshops, gaming, comic art, and after-hours events. Visit Soonercon.com for details.
On tap today, we have Ryan Thomas Riddle. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Aaron. Glad to be here. Thanks for asking me to come on.
Glad to have you here. I wanted to talk to you about a topic that we all love, fan fiction, because I came across a work of yours, and you're an accomplished writer.
Yes.
But I heard about this work you did, and people have written fan fiction because they just have a story to get out, or because it seems like a fun thing to do, or maybe on a dare. But this bit you have is Star Trek Oath. You have a very unique story behind how this came about, and I really want to hear that.
Sure. Yeah. So I've always wanted to write on Star Trek. I mean, I don't think that's I've not kept that secret. I've wanted to write Star Trek since I was a child, basically. You know, when I had with my copy of The Making of Star Trek, the first time I read that, oh, they make these things, right? And that there are people who go into making it other than the actors, right? You always think of the actors first. That there's writers and that there's directors and then there's crew and production designers and all sorts of things. And I found that very fascinating environment. I didn't think someone like me from San Diego, California, you know, a Navy brat, a half Filipino, half white kid could do that as a job. I didn't think that was a job. It was one of my job possibilities. And so I've always wanted to write on Star Trek since I was a kid, and it became more of a reality for me when an 8th grade creative writing teacher said, no, really, you could write for Star Trek. Here's a pamphlet on how to write for TV. And I saw that pamphlet. It's on my desk. And it's just a short little pamphlet about formatting and all that stuff and how many pages a TV script is versus a film and all that basic information you need. And in fact, I would say that most screenwriters, that's all you need. And then you just need to write. You don't need any of those other books. Just get yourself a thing that tells you about like formatting really quick. And then I started trying to write a Star Trek script. It went horribly wrong. And then I got obsessed with a show called Babylon 5 in high school. And I thought, well, maybe I can write a Babylon 5 script. So I did. Thank God it's burned to ash on some disc, 3.5 disc somewhere in the world because it was very horrible. And actually, I realized looking back on the story now that it was a Star Trek script disguised as a Babylon 5 script, which is the wrong way to approach it. Anyway, and then I met the creator of Babylon 5, Joe Straczynski, at Comic-Con, and I asked him, how do you become a writer? And he says, just do the work. And that's my mantra, do the work. So flash forward, long story, not short, to about sometime in early 2023. I think that's when Picard was starting out, right? Around January, February. And I just tweeted out as a lark, mind you, because it just popped in my head. And I said, oh, yeah, I would really like to see a show where Beverly Crusher is rogue and she's out on the frontier and she's helping people and using her skills in a different way that's not Starfleet, right? Because that's what was set up at the beginning of Picard. And I just love that moment where she's doing things that Dr. Crusher was never allowed to do on the show. She's got a phaser rifle. She's shooting. She's defending something or someone. We don't know who it is yet, right? And God, what a marvelous opening that Terry wrote. I said, God, that would make a great freaking show. And so I tweeted it out. That day, not only did Gates McFadden follow me back, she quote tweeted me and said, okay, write the script, send it.
Nice.
It was like one of those like, did this just happen moments in my life? Is this something, you know? Because the previous year I wrote a Strange New Worlds spec script. Because every screenwriting or every screenwriter who's trying to get into Hollywood, such as myself, should have a spec because it trains you to write, you know, Why not write a Star Trek, right? I mean, it's Star Trek, right? And that one was a Uhura focused episode, and it went to Austin Film Festival, and it made the finals. I was already flabbergasted over that. I
Yeah.
didn't think anything I wrote would get that far to anything, And mind you, I've won a couple of local awards for journalism for my investigative reporting, but I never thought I'd get far into like a national thing, right? And so, and then when the Gates McFadden retweet, I go, oh my God, I guess I got to do this now. I can't back down from this challenge.
No, not at all.
I mean, this is literally an open. You don't get this. You don't get this a lot in this industry. You don't get an actor saying openly, publicly saying, "I want to read something you write, so go write it." Right? And it astounded me, and I dove deep first into writing Star Trek Oath right after that, and it took some time. TV pilots and scripts are not something I mean, some people can write them in a very quick amount of time, but they're an investment in terms of trying to make it something that is presentable to especially to a talent like Gates McFadden. You want to try to put your best foot out there, or my best two left feet, whichever one I can put out there. So I went and I just got really into this world, and it was really fun. And I got to create a new team for her. I got to make her, Beverly Crusher, the center of the show. It's basically, what would a Star Trek show be if Beverly Crusher was the captain, except she's not really a captain. She's still a doctor, right? And it turned out to be this sort of, best analogy. Well, sci-fi fans will get this. It became this sort of like Blake Seven Star Trek, right? It's like they're operating outside of the Federation. The Federation may be doing something nasty out on the frontier, we don't know, or it may involve a secret rogue, a section of Starfleet. I think it has a number. I'm not sure.
I have no idea what you're
I have
talking
no
about.
idea.
Not even close.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Oh, yes, exactly. Like that Delta that you're currently wearing. Yes, the organization that has a lot of branding for an organization that's very secret. But yeah, and I started forming the story. But more importantly, I wanted to form a story about where is Beverly Crusher in her life now, and can it be different than Starfleet and Jean-Luc Picard? Can she be untied to those things and still make a difference? Can she inspire a new team of young doctors? And is there anyone that gives a damn about the worlds on the frontier that no one else does? Because the one thing I love about Star Trek, especially the original series, which is my first love, was that they were completely out there. There was no starbase to run back to every week. There was no communique from Earth that took came instantly, right? I like that idea. So I wanted to set this way out in the frontier, like farther out, just past the Horsehead Nebula, because I like the symbol of the horse, and there's a lot of "have gun will travel" references in Oath, and so I just wanted to set this where we would see new things in races that we hadn't seen before on Star Trek, because now Star Trek shows us every race we've seen before, and I'd like to move on beyond that, and see new things again, see different things that we haven't seen. So that's just the genesis of where Oath came from. In a long-winded story.
Sure. I mean, I so want to pick apart everything we're talking about there, and I will. But I mean, the obvious thing I have to ask next is, so you're prompted to write this by Gates McFadden. You write it. Does she get to read it?
She does. Actually, it is now in her hands.
Okay.
I took a risk. As they say, risk is our business, after all. I with the help of a few people, I was able to locate the contact information of her reps, Because unfortunately Gates McFadden's Twitter account was hacked.
Yeah.
Just as I completed like the draft of Oath that I said, this is the one. This is it. We're done. This is the draft that we show people. This is the draft that's going on the stunt list. But you know, her Twitter had, so I had no ability to DM her anymore.
Sure.
And I thought, crap, what am I going to do now? And then through some artful friends that are also screenwriters and in the entertainment industry, got me her agency, her agent reps. And so I just wrote a simple, and I waited until the stunt list came out because he was coming out on the stunt list. I thought that's the perfect opportunity. If there's an opportunity to send it to her, this is the one, because it's you know, as Ash said to me, who's one of the co-founders of Stunt List with Eric, he said, hey, you know, it's just a link. You can just send her a link. I said, oh, that's a genius idea. Just send her a link. I don't have to send the script. I don't have to wait for them to get back to me to say to send the script, because you don't send the script cold, right? But in this case, and then my friend Kaya, who runs the Entertainment Business School, who is a close friend and has given me real direction in my screenwriting career, she goes, just email her reps and just say, hey, it's a read request. She requested. Oh, and my friend Michael as well, another screenwriter, said, just read request. Just say it was a read request, because technically it is. She asked for you to send her something. That's a direct invitation. Send me a script, right?
Right.
So I just wrote a simple email, you know, just very simple, and said, hey, you know, a year ago, Gates asked to see something like this, and blah, blah, blah. And I was shocked. I sent them the link, you know. I sent them a screenshot of the tweet that she had. And I thought, you know what? Well, now it's in the hands of the great bird of the galaxy. It's out of my hands. The great space koala can, you know, they're gonna make whatever happens next, right? Because you have to let it go at that point, you know, because you could obsess over it for weeks, right?
Yeah.
But like, I think like a week later, not even like a week or so later, usually these things takes months for anyone to respond back to you on something. But within like a week or so, I response from her reps, said it's in Gates' hands, and she plans on reading it soon. And if that's as far as it goes, and I never hear a thing again, I'll be happy, because I did something that I didn't think was possible. I got challenged by someone that I thought would never know who I am. And I took a risk, a chance. And whether that chance gets me to the next thing or just sets me up for the next thing, I know I've done at least my part, my job. Would I want to see it made? Oh yes, I want to see it made. Of course I want to see it made. I put a lot into it. It's some of the best writing I've done in years. And it's for something I can actually use as a sellable thing around town, right? Because it's IP I don't know, right? But I think it's, you know, and you know, I don't often brag about my writing, but this is the one piece that I'm very like, this is the one. Like when I finished it, I was like, this is good stuff. I've done something good finally. After 25 years of being a professional writer, I've written something worthwhile. But I just never, it's just something I've never thought I'd get to this specific place ever. If teenage me, who was trying to struggle writing that first script or whatever it was, knew that this is where it would go, I wouldn't believe him. Right? I wouldn't believe it. And I just, you know,
you have absolutely the best attitude toward this, I got to tell you.
Yeah, well, if I, you know, and that attitude comes from a lot of friends that have supported me over the years, and you you can obsess over it and let it eat you inside, or you can say, you know what, I'm pretty damn proud that I at least did this, and you know what, I'm pretty damn proud I at least did this part. Whatever happens next is out of my control. And I'm not a person that easily gives up control. I'm a bit of a control freak. an obsessive compulsive control freak. So, uh, but yeah, with this, it would drive me nuts. So I, you know, it, if something happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, if she just says it's a good thing, it's a good script and all that. If she just gives it a compliment, I'll be fine with that too.
Sure.
I think the win in this for me is just that I did it, and I had I had the gramba to send it to her, you know, and yeah, I'm still freaking like I keep expecting someone to say computer end program any day now, and then these holodeck doors will open. I'll be standing in the middle of an empty yellow grid and a yellow and black grid, and you know it would all been a dream. I just I really did not expect, and the fact that when Eric and Ash put it on the stunt list, and it became the most downloaded script of this particular run of the stunt list for 2024 was even more so like shocking. So yes, it's fan fiction that I could never make on my own unless Paramount says, "Hey," and trust me, I know that the chances of that are very, very non-existent. Right? I know that. I have no delusions of grandeur here. I know the reality of television production, and for a screenwriter at my level, where my chances are. But stranger things have happened, and everyone has a different story of how they got into the business.
Sure.
And it's never the same story. So, but you know, it's just one step. There is, as the song goes, a long road.
I don't want to get into speculating as to what could happen or should happen because, like you just said very well, there are so many things that could happen that let's not even go there.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what already has happened because that to me is the more fun conversation.
Yeah, sure.
Is that we have Gates McFadden, who is a very talented television creator in her own right and film creator as well. I mean, she did a great job directing several episodes. She's been on behind the movie camera, and she has a resume, and yet on Star Trek had a very underutilized character.
Yes.
Which everybody regrets because we all love Bev. We just don't get to see enough of her being herself.
Yeah.
So you get the chance to maybe make everybody's dream come true for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You can say, let's actually make a Bev show which shows her at her best, shows a side of her that's not been seen before, and you get to even make the person who's most appreciates that happy, maybe just for 5 minutes. That's a gift.
Well, the best part is that the Beverly Crusher fans have really resonated with the script. And actually, I thank a lot of them. Jesse of the Crusher Convo, which is an excellent podcast that is all things Beverly Crusher, that you could fit into a Starfleet medkit that you'd ever want. And Harmony, who is also a huge Beverly Crusher fan. Those two champion this script, and I think much of the success in terms of getting a lot of eyeballs on it is in part to them because they really mentioned it and how much they liked it, and I'm glad that I could find friends in them, and I'm happy that they enjoyed the script. I think that's the best compliment. The fan reaction is the best compliment a writer could ever get, right? That it resonated with someone. I mean, sure, a sale would be nice, right? Because that's money. But I think the best part of this is that that fan reaction, that it thrilled and moved someone else, right? I wrote this to give Beverly her moment, and that people that love this character as much as I do, get that and see it and then enjoy it. There's no better review than that, right? And I've seen others through my social media. Someone said, "Oh, this is the show that we should have instead of Legacy," and I go, "Well, I want Legacy too," but
yeah, no,
but
I do.
but I get the compliment, and I'm like, that humbles me, right? Not that I could hold a pencil box to Terry Metalis, and but it's that there was a fervor when it came out that I have never yet been a part of, in terms of fans loving something I've written like that. I got compliments here and there about other stuff, but this is like the thing that's like, oh, maybe I'm actually really good at this. I don't know.
I do want to ask. I mean, just because I have to know. You have a ship in there, and I'm not going to give us spoilers. Your script is available online if anybody wants to read it. I will link to it in the show notes on my website. In addition to those other people you mentioned, I'll link to them as well. But I'm not going to give away anything, but I will say stuff like, "Hey, your ship is the ship in there doesn't have what the name you would expect. Like you would expect, like the Pasteur or the Salk or another medical type ship. And the ship you have is the Hirschfeld.
Yes. Yes.
And you picked that name because
very specifically, it's Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld is the namesake of the ship.
Okay.
He ran the Sex Institute in Berlin, Germany, that the Nazis decimated.
I see.
His work and his books on transsexuality, he was one of the earliest researchers that was starting to document things. His Sex Institute became a safe haven for not only gays and lesbians and bisexuals, but for trans people. They could find community, they could find assistance and medical help in a time where that was extremely non-existent.
Okay.
And I wanted my script, as much of anything else, to also say trans rights in some way.
Sure, I see that in a lot of places.
Yeah, there is also a trans character on the ship. One of the characters is Dr. Bakshi. They, them pronouns. I thought these were very important things. The script also has, not to get into spoilers, but there's also more of that in terms of the people they are saving in this script. I wanted to be very Roddenberry about it. And we know that Roddenberry is as subtle as a bull in a china shop.
Yeah, okay,
right?
fair.
And I want to do it both in subtle and in overt ways. And I think of anything, I wanted it, because that's Star Trek, right? Star Trek says things. Some people don't agree with them. And there's a section of fandom that don't get that, how they like Star Trek and not understand that there is this underlying philosophical, socialist, equality sort of theme that runs through it, right? We all belong and we all have a place in the universe and we all have something to contribute to the universe, right? And I would like to think that, if and I know Roddenberry was not a very, how shall we say, in tuned with the LGBT community during his time, but I would like to think that if there was a Roddenberry today, that's a story that Roddenberry would want to sort of have as part of the show of Star Trek, because that social awareness, that challenging our own perceptions of humanity and taking a look at our own ugliness, are all part and parcel of Star Trek. And I thought, well, if I'm gonna write a Star Trek, I'm gonna write a Star Trek. I'm gonna put and say all those uncomfortable or show all those uncomfortable things. And the thing is that I tried to do it in a way that didn't call it out, like specifically. I mean, it's not that subtle at the end. It's in the vein of Roddenberry, but it doesn't specifically, no one gives a speech on like the 21st century blah 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 blah, struggles and all that stuff. Because I also wanted it to be like, oh, these characters are people, and they just exist, right? These characters are just people who exist, and it's not like, they're not constantly like put on the spotlight of that's that one aspect of their lives is the only aspect of their lives that matters. But even though right now it really freaking matters when you have laws trying to limit their access to medical care, or which freaking bathroom they use, like all this stuff to make them feel less than human. And I want them to feel human. I want other people to see them as human, because we're all humans. And that's the ultimate message of Star Trek. We're all humans trying to get through this life on this ball of dirt that's hurtling through space. And that we should respect one another. There's no room for bigotry on the bridge of my starship, right? It's right there in the original, it's in the kernel. So I wanted my version of Star Trek to have all of those elements in some fashion. So it's very purposeful of me choosing that name. And especially now we're banning books again, and Nazis are back. Like, I didn't think that was ever going to happen in my lifetime. I was told those were things of the past. Those were bad things that bad people did in the past. And now they're all back again. Thousands being killed, book banning, Nazis walking freely through the streets of America with no shame about it, proud of it. Look at me, I'm a racist, I'm a transphobe, I'm a homophobe. And so I think it's more now than ever, we need those Star Trek stories to tell us, no, those are the bad things. And I think the new shows do a fairly good job of keeping that baton, but I wanted mine to also have that. I wanted mine to shout it from the hills.
And the advantage of making your own script is that you have that prerogative. You can make it as subtle or as blatant as you choose. And there have been Star Trek, scripts that were a bit on the subtle side, and some that were like That Be Your Last Battlefield. I mean, and everything in between.
Right.
But first of all, I want to thank you for giving me that history lesson there, because that's something that I was not aware of and now feel very compelled to do more research on. I'll get at least the basics in the show notes, because I think that the audience deserves that.
Yeah, of course.
But I just want to say, as a Star Trek fan, as somebody who's been a Star Trek fan for several decades, I see that name and I think of a certain illustrator.
Oh, yes. I totally forgot about him. Yes.
And that's not to downplay what the very, very valid point that you're making there. But I'm just saying it's interesting that I think seeing that some Star Trek fans are going to really feel a tie to a very proud tradition that we've had in our fandom.
Yes, yeah. I love those illustrations. I always try to find the Nina in all of them. Right?
Yeah, that's the game.
That's the game. I try to find the Nina in all of his illustrations. Yeah, I did not even think about that.
Well, and obviously not, because that wasn't your goal. But I'm saying, as somebody who did not have that history lesson prior to this, it's like that's where my head went.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, it has a twofer now.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Well, I mean, to go back to your point, I didn't know about Magnus Hirschfeld because he was not taught in school. I didn't learn about him until I think about 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of LGBTQ history that I didn't know, and a few years ago I started trying to learn as much as I could, and then I learned that really the whole gay rights movement owes its thanks to trans women. It got started because of trans women, and they were erased from, like, once the movement got to a certain point of acceptance, they became erased, and no one, and luckily now, the kids are smarter than my generation. They're very much more aware of who these people are like Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson. So they're very much more aware of the history now. But yeah, I like that it has that too, because I love those. God, I would love him to do one for Oath. If
That
only
would
I
be
could go
great.
back in time. If
Yeah,
only I
and
could go back in time.
that's the big tragedy, is that the stuff that's been made in the last 20 years was made after he was able to make illustrations of it. So there's a very defining line that we can't go back to.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's but those are fantastic ones. I would love to have prints of them in my office, in my home ready room, as I call it. That's such a wow, it's a twofer. I love it.
and I like that you talked about at the early beginning of this conversation about how in the original series there was this sense of we're on our own out here. Because that's true, and that's something that you very subtly started to lose as the newer shows came out. And by the newer
Yeah,
shows, I mean like everything other than the original series, because
yeah,
even on Next Gen, they had the idea of going out into the wilderness. They said, we're starting at Farpoint. This is
yeah,
the end of the galaxy that was we know it. And we kept finding reasons to come home again,
yeah, yeah.
which was the weird thing about Next Gen.
Yeah. It was so weird because the first 2 years are about them being completely on the frontier,
Mhm.
right? Uh, like I think what is it? Picard says when they go back to Earth, and Earth is shocked, like, the hell are you doing out here? You're supposed to be all the way out there.
Right.
And he says something like, "Oh, we hadn't heard anything. We've been on the rim of the galaxy, which means they're on the far edge. They hadn't heard anything that's going on with Starfleet or anything like that." And then by season 3, they've become basically the diplomatic version of the Love Boat.
Mhm.
Like they're just running to and fro in Federation space, or slightly just around it, getting people to sign up for the Federation. So it becomes a very different show in the third season. It's still Next Generation, but it becomes less about the exploration and more about the political machinations of of known space as opposed to unexplored space.
Sure. And there's a space for that, no pun intended. And I love
Yeah,
those kinds of shows. I'm a
right.
huge DS9 fan. I
Yeah,
love the back and forth, but that's why I do watch the original series, is because I do love to have this feeling of it's just this little tiny ship in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, yeah, and you know, I love the idea of you have no one but yourself to rely on,
Hmm.
and the others around you, and I think that creates not only for stronger bonds between people, but also makes for more fascinating stories, right? I love Strange New Worlds. I think it's I love I hate to say I love Disco a little more, because I just that show did everything, brought in everything that I needed for a Star Trek show to start to bring in after
Hmm.
50 years. Um, and I love Strange New Worlds because it is basically like, oh, let's do Star Trek again, right? Like the old Star Trek, right?
Sure.
Except the one thing I don't like about the show is that they're always at Starbase One, and Pike is always talking to Admiral April. I love Admiral April; he's a great character. I love the actor, but it's just like, man, can you imagine if Kirk was always going back to Earth and then going back to the frontier every week? Because that seems like the way it feels right now with Strange New Worlds. And I was like, no, I really want them to be out there. I want Pike to have to make those tough decisions, like in the pilot, where he's, I decide who lives and who dies. Um, but yeah, we're missing a show that's really, really out there, like farther out than
Yeah.
any other show. Um, because even the Cerritos is basically doing second contact missions, so they're not really on the frontier. They're already going to places that have been met by the Federation now. Um, but yeah, I miss that idea of like we're all alone out here.
And I think part of that is that we just have a generational gap now, that we can't go back to this idea from the 60s when you can be on your own completely, because we're too used to being connected now. Even in the 80s, we were way more connected than we were in the 60s. And
Yeah,
it's just gotten worse since then. So it's just hard to think of home being that far away to the audience.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is, and I think starting with Next Generation season 3, the Star Trek universe began feeling smaller and smaller. Um, everything was connected. Everyone knew who everyone was. I kind of liked it in the original series. Well, some people knew who Kirk was, and we'd always run into friends of Kirk or who were in Kirk's academy class, right? But mainly, he wasn't a famous captain at that time. He wasn't, and the fact that TNG made the Enterprise the flagship, which one is the incorrect nautical term for flagship, and second, it made the Enterprise feel too special. We already knew it was special, but special because we're watching it, right? The original series, and I think Strange New Worlds has retconned all this, is that the Enterprise has always been the flagship. But I liked it that it was just one of 12. It was the one of 12 we were watching. It was the one out on the frontier, and these were just people doing their jobs in space. Basically, the original series is we're just the Space Navy doing our job on the frontier, and I like that. And I think Star Trek has lost a little bit of that as the franchise has grown more and more. I liked it in Naked Now when Picard didn't even know who the hell Kirk was, commanded by Captain.
That was nice. Kirk. Yeah, I love that little touch, and I think it works better with him having a stronger legacy and Picard, growing up celebrating James Kirk Day or whatever it was. But
yeah,
it was a neat way to spin it. It made a lot more sense when you weren't sure how much of a departure the next gen was going to be over the original series.
Yeah.
It was a safe move to make at that time, and I do think that we've lost some things too. I'll agree with you there.
Yeah, I think we've lost some aspects of that sense of exploration. I don't know. Yeah. Shows evolve, franchises evolve, but I'd like if I ever got a crack at the franchise, I'd like to expand it again a little more. Meet people we haven't met.
And I think that the script here is a good example of that. That this is a good benchmark for what you would do if you could, helm your own show or at least guide it a little bit. And I would watch this. I would absolutely watch this for exactly the reasons we're talking about here.
And that's the best compliment a writer can ever get. I would watch this. I want to see this. I read it. I want to see it. So that's the thank you. I appreciate that. That's the best. That's the best. Those are the best. Those are, it's easy to remember the bad reviews, right? What do they say? They always tell creatives, don't look at the reviews, don't read the reviews, don't read the reviews, don't get in the comments, right? But it's nice to hear the positive every once in a while because it's an affirmation that you are on the right path, and no one beats themselves up better than a writer. Like, we're our harshest critic. We will say, "Oh, it stinks," faster than people on the internet can say it stinks. So it's thank you. I really appreciate it. It's good to hear. And I honestly, if you heard the voices in my head, they're going, he's wrong, you suck. Because that's the voice that all writers have in the back of their heads that they have to learn to live with. Because you can't murder it. It's against, I don't know, some law somewhere.
And I have nothing but sympathy for you here because I know what it's like to try to put something together and get it out there. And, it only works 1 out of 100 times, if that. And then you just hope that the one that lands big. And as Trekkies here, we're all kind of wondering what the next move to make is going to be for the franchise as a whole. And I don't want to speculate, but I know there's things I would like to see.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping the world is listening to people like me.
I hope that they are because that's how we got Strange New Worlds, right?
Yeah.
They listened to the fans. They saw that there was sort of this lightning rod that they had to capture. And Alex, I loved Alex Kurtzman's philosophy in handling the franchise. We're not going to make every show for every Star Trek fan. But we're going to make a show that will be your Star Trek. Like, we're not going to cater to all of you. We're going to create shows that might resonate with some fans, may not. Like, there's a willingness to at least try different things, right? This Starfleet Academy thing, everyone's been talking about, they should do a Starfleet Academy show. They tried to make a Starfleet Academy movie in the 80s, with Ethan Hawke and stuff like that as Kirk, a young Kirk, right? So, it's not a new idea, but I think they're taking a fresh approach to it. And I love that it's on the back of Discovery, right? And I'm excited to see that show because it's something different.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about officers already in their career. It's about officers at the start of their career, right? It might be everything I wanted them to do with Wesley Crusher in TNG, you know. But I like the philosophy of the team that is currently the shepherds of the franchise. Is that we're going to try things and do, you know, like we got a Star Trek. We basically got a Star Trek animated comedy, right? We wouldn't have gotten that in the 90s.
No.
You know, Berman would have probably laughed them out of the office. Cartoon, are you kidding? It's Star Trek, serious stuff, right? What is it going to be like that one in the 70s where it's like they don't move hardly and blink? You know, the animation's horrible. Sorry, Aaron. I know you love the, you know.
It's okay. We're all friends here.
Okay, but you know, they're doing a Star Trek sitcom now. I don't know if it's single cam or 3-cam. Although it was 3-cam, I'd really applaud them for being very experimental with Star Trek. Like, wow, a 3-cam Star Trek comedy. You know, and I think that's fantastic. They're willing to take chances on different types of shows, right? You know, Picard started off less like a Star Trek show, and you know, granted that didn't resonate with me in the first season. It took a while, but you know, the first season was very different kind of Star Trek. It was sort of like, oh, this is a show that you would, this is the kind of Star Trek show you would see possibly on AMC or HBO, right? So they're willing to like try different things and then, you know, make changes as they go along. If something doesn't work out or something does, they really highlight that, right? Like Pike and Spock really worked in season 2 of Discovery. Let's get them a show. Fans seem to love that, you know. So I'm glad that they're trying things because, you know, if it was still the 90s, you know, there would be more of a status quo attitude about Star Trek, and I like that there's this like let's do what we can to change the franchise.
Yeah, I'm actually a huge fan of Picard, all 3 seasons, because I like the variety of the things that were tried. I think that there were some very good choices made, and for very different reasons all the way through.
Right. Yeah, I think the one thing that I appreciate about Picard was it was trying to do something different. It was trying to put a different spin. What I really loved was and this is the part that I took as the inspiration of both, is especially in the first year, how Picard assembles this ragtag team. And I love that idea. I thought that we're going to do more of that. You know, I was kind of excited to see Picard working on the outskirts, right? With this ragtag team of former Starfleet and a rogue, you know, AI scientist and all that stuff. I was, you know, that I liked, and that is one aspect that I tried to also put into Oath, right? And especially the part about no Starfleet, right? Because I loved Rios. He was a great character. And you know, of all the new Picard characters, Raffi is my favorite by far. And I've loved that actress since her I've loved Michelle Hurd since her early time on SVU. She's like, I think she's there for like maybe a season or 2, if that. It's a very blink and you'll miss her kind of thing, but she was so fantastic in that. As I think she was Munch's partner before Ice-T. She's fantastic.
And I'm also going to throw this out there just because I want to hear another writer's response to it, not because I think I can actually. It's not happening, but I want to just play with your head for 5 seconds.
Sure.
My idea for Starfleet Academy is Animal House in space.
You know, they're the Space Navy. Why shouldn't it be? I mean,
it's everybody. Starfleet Academy is basically college, right?
Yeah, it's basically college, and you know,
the only real person we really know from Starfleet Academy is Finnegan, who was basically the Bluto of the Star Trek universe anyway. So
Yeah.
just let the other shoe drop. Go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, hey, you know what? You've got Tanya Newsom as one of the staff writers. You know, there's going to be a little bit of shenanigans.
The thought had occurred to me.
Yeah, there's going to be a little. I want to see them have to, because my colleagues. I want to see them take a test the morning after they've been out doing a bunch of drinking and drugging and partying. I want them to wake up, and go, oh shit, we have quantum physics final in 2 hours. Get up. That sort of thing. Someone should take what's this, Spock's Lyra and smash it against the wall in one scene.
Because he wanted to sing Freebird.
Yeah. I like that idea. I would tune in. I'm going to tune in week to week anyway, but I would definitely tune in if it's Animal House in space.
Yeah. Just throwing it out there, but yeah.
No. I love that idea. I think that's if you're going to do a show like that, do a show that's going to be that, because you don't need to do like like 90210 and 90201 in space. You need to do Animal House in space. I'd watch. That would be a good show.
Well, Brian, I want to make sure that I get a chance to point people towards your script. I'm going to put it in the show notes. Where can people follow you and the rest of your adventures on the web?
Sure. Yes. Everyone can follow my adventures in time and space on Twitter at Ryan T. Riddle, and on Instagram, TikTok, blah, 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 blah. I'm Ryan Thomas Riddle. And then you can find more of my work at ryanthomasriddle.com, which is my main website.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'd be glad to have you back anytime. I hope to see you at a convention real soon.
Yeah, me too. It was great. I love this. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Glad to.